You don't get it. We're already dead.
When you think about the wave of young adult book adaptations that dominated theaters in the 2010s, it's impossible not to bring up The Maze Runner. What started as an ambitious adaptation of James Dashner's novels quickly became one of the better-known dystopian franchises of that decade. And now, even though it's been a while since the last movie, Maze Runner 4 has been confirmed, giving fans plenty of reasons to start speculating about where the story could go next. The first three films followed Dylan O'Brien as Thomas and Kaya Scodelario as Teresa. Together with their group of Gladers, they spent the trilogy trying to survive the maze, fight against the shady corporation WCKD, and eventually search for a cure to the flare virus that devastated humanity. By the time Maze Runner: The Death Cure wrapped things up in 2018, it really felt like the story had reached a proper ending. Thomas and his friends had found a safe haven, and WCKD's hold on the world was broken. So when credits rolled, no one was entirely sure if there would ever be more to tell. But fans didn't let the idea of a fourth film fade completely, mostly because there was always that lingering thought. The original three movies made almost $1 billion worldwide. When a franchise has that kind of box office history, studios don't like to let it sit idle for too long. And on top of that, James Dashner didn't stop at just 3 books. He went on to write prequels and sequels, which means there's already a bunch of material Disney and 20th Century Studios could use if they want to expand the franchise. Now, after years of rumors and questions, it's official that Maze Runner 4 is happening, or at least in development. Disney took control of the franchise when it bought 20th Century Studios in 2019, right after The Death Cure released. Even though that last movie ended up being the weakest of the three in terms of both reviews and box office, Disney clearly saw value in keeping the series alive. And when they presented their big plans at CinemaCon in 2019, Maze Runner 4 was part of the lineup alongside other franchises like Kingsman, Avatar, Planet of the Apes, and Alien. So far, Disney has delivered on nearly all those promises. Kingsman 3 is in the works, Avatar has multiple sequels, Planet of the Apes has Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes coming, and Alien Romulus is now a reality. But Maze Runner 4 is the one still stuck in limbo. There has been no director attached, no writer announced, and no clear timeline of when cameras might start rolling. Although the silence might worry some fans, the fact that Disney hasn't canceled it says a lot. It's still sitting on their table, waiting for the right creative spark. The big question is, what story would Maze Runner 4 even tell? James Dashner's book series actually gives 2 main options, and both would take the story in very different directions. One path would be to go backwards in time by adapting The Kill Order. That book came out in 2012 and acts as a prequel to the original trilogy. It tells the story of the early days of the flare virus, years before Thomas and the Gladers were ever around. The main characters in that story are Mark and Trina, 2 teenagers trying to survive as the world falls apart. Even though Thomas and Teresa do appear in a short prologue, the focus shifts to new characters and new struggles. It would be an origin story of sorts, explaining how the virus started and how society collapsed into chaos. The other direction would be to jump far into the future with The Maze Cutter. This book came out in 2022 and is set 73 years after the Death Cure. Instead of Thomas and his crew, the story follows their descendants, characters like Sedina, Isaac, and Jackie, who live on an island where the Glader society has evolved. Things get complicated when a mysterious ship arrives, bringing new dangers and threatening their way of life. What makes this option so intriguing is that it could serve as both a sequel and a soft reboot, introducing new characters while still keeping ties to the original trilogy. Of course, adapting either book would create some challenges for casting. If the filmmakers choose The Kill Order, they'd need a mostly new cast, since Thomas and Teresa are only children in that story. It wouldn't make much sense to bring Dylan O'Brien or Kaya Scodelario back for such small roles, unless flashbacks or added material were used. The studio could, however, sprinkle in familiar faces like Ava Page or other WCKD members to tie it back more clearly to the trilogy audiences know. On the other hand, if Disney goes with The Maze Cutter, then practically all of the original cast would be out of the picture. Since the book takes place nearly 3/4 of a century later, Thomas, Newt, Brenda, and the rest would either be long gone or impossibly old. The only way to bring them back would be through flashbacks or narration. A lot of fans have floated the idea of Thomas narrating from the afterlife or through some recorded journals, bridging the gap between the old and new stories. That way, Dylan O'Brien could still have a presence in the film without needing to appear on screen as a full-time character. Although it's unclear which book Disney will pick, both directions offer fresh opportunities. Going with The Kill Order could give audiences more insight into how the world ended up the way it did, while The Maze Cutter could let the franchise reinvent itself for a new generation of fans. Either way, it would be a way to keep the universe alive, and that's what matters most when trying to build a sustainable series. So, when will Maze Runner 4 actually come out? That's the million-dollar question. Right now, Disney hasn't put it on their release calendar, which already stretches out through 2027. That probably means the earliest we could expect to see it would be sometime around 2028. It might sound far away, but in some ways, that timing could work perfectly. It would mark the 10th anniversary of the Death Cure, which would make for a neat marketing hook. But release dates in Hollywood are always tricky. If Disney decides to fast-track the project, it could be ready in just a couple of years. On the other hand, if they keep dragging their feet, the movie might not arrive until the 2030s. What's clear, though, is that announcing an official release date would immediately reassure fans that the franchise hasn't been forgotten. Another interesting piece of this puzzle is the business side. Because the first 3 movies brought in so much money, Disney knows there's already an audience ready to show up. That's why there's real potential for Maze Runner 4 to be more than just a continuation. It could be a way to build a brand new chapter that appeals to both old fans and newcomers. Casting will play a huge role in that. Bringing in a bunch of fresh faces, maybe even some rising stars like Florence Pugh or Timothée Chalamet, could instantly boost interest and help the movie find a stronger footing at the box office. And it's worth pointing out that the original trilogy has found new life in the streaming era. Just like we've seen with other franchises, when movies hit platforms like Disney Plus or Netflix, they tend to pick up fresh fans who might have missed them in theaters. That new audience could be what convinces Disney to finally move forward with a bigger commitment to the series. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.